Good Wednesday morning, peoples. Bruce back at you with Coney and PLTY, my daily update for 6-3 trading on Tuesday. So, how did these stocks do? Let's start with Coney. Coney had a nice big up day. It seemed bigger than even the percentage because, when it's 200 and you know, 30, $40, 246, and it went to 258, so it was up over a little over $12, which if a $30 stock was up $12, it'd be massive, but it's still nice. So 4.94% on coin. If I said Coney, I always talk about coin first, our underlying. Coney, 80% match. Little better, probably 81, 82%. 4.13 was up from 7 something, 780 to 806. So we've still got a little terrain to keep moving. Um, but this is a positive sign. Remember what hurt us yesterday and what was happening? And by the way, on the share count, it was interesting. Remember, I told you for a couple of days they went roaring up. Last time they were up 550,000 shares. Well, this time they sold 525,000. So they usually that forces them to put some trades on, but I think they had enough cash that it didn't. But they did not have trades. Sometimes if you see what you can refer to as liquidation, people selling, like if they came out, this is 0.38, 0.37 of the fund. Even though it's because the fund's been around, it has such a big share count, right? So what did I say it was? Yeah, 0.36. But if it had been 10%, you would have seen them selling synthetics and having to generate cash to make up for the liquidation of shares in the fund. But this is minor. But to me, it seems like a big number. But once you see the percentage, it's not. But basically, it just flipped back what it did the other day, right? So Monday it went up 550,000. Tuesday it went down 525,000 shares. All right. So whenever you move up, your synthetic, which is a full bullish long paired position, your put goes down in value, so you make money. Your call goes up in value. And this was particularly needy because we were below 250. And remember, we had sold a little bit of extra. Um, and we were able to get more cash than we had to give up because of where it was. So that was a nice little trade over here. They did on 6-2, they did 400, not a lot. So they spent 374, but they collected 510, all because they were underneath 250. Normally at strike price, or certainly when you're above it, you pay more for the calls than you're able to sell the puts. But still. All right, so the synthetic roared, right? We were down over here minus 12,667. We are now a positive 43. So that was like a $55 million swing in the value. And what's our expiration date on these synthetics? It is, well, it tells me in the actual synthetic, 620. Yeah, they're coming up in 2 weeks. I thought these were there. It's PLTY that has the 718 ones, so they have a longer period. I keep these numbers in my head, and it's easy to mix one up with the other. All right. So moving along on that part is brilliant. Well, it hurt us a little bit. It hurt us to the tune of 8.774 million after gaining 55 million, 43 and 12. We stepped back 8.7 million in having to buy back, and we're still underwater on some other ones. So here we are at 258. we just put a 255 on. Let me get here. The dark green is all of the sold calls. These are the bought calls, which are insurance in the light. So we had just put this guy on, right? Not very many, 400 to match the synthetic. And we're in a situation where we're 208,000 behind. We only collected 92,000, close to 93,000, and it would cost us. Now, we could go, I don't really want us to go down very much, but I wouldn't mind if we went down a little bit. What did we sell these for? The 255s. We sold them for 232. So if we go down to 256 and we buy them back for $1.15 or $1.20, that's okay. We keep a lot of that synthetic, and the rest of them we're all clear on. So a little different in PLTY, but this guy, we're okay on these. Our insurance ones are setting there. So sorry, when I said that they put on a few trades, Coney did 0 trades. It's PLTY that had 3 or 4. They didn't have very many. And normally midweek, guys, you don't get, unless you have a big upside or a big downside move, and it forces the fund managers to recalibrate, recalculate, buy and sell some things to get positioned with whether we're lower or higher. But when you're muddling along, like in PLTY's case, it moved up a dollar or something. So, but we were already overextended. So I'm going to get to that one in a minute. So the net, let me sum this for you guys. So I didn't update the chart because frankly, it didn't move a lot. So think about it. We're right back up here above this 250 line and below probably the peak, but not that much below that peak. That peak would be just about split the halfway, the 262.5. And what are we? 258. So we're right back up there. Remember I said that when you get this gap breakout, it can consolidate and go, or it can come back and test this inverse head and shoulders line across here, which was pretty far down because of the gap breakout. But anything's possible. It's around 218. So far, it's not looking like we want to. As soon as we went down below 250 yesterday, boom, it went up. I didn't really look if there was any news driving anything on this. A lot of times I do, but like I said, I'm covering just personally about 100 stocks in my portfolio, so it takes a bit of work. All right, so let's leave that alone. To sum that up, we had about an 8.7. Now, again, these aren't always sold. This is just paper of a penny. And the same thing with the synthetic. We didn't sell or trade anything. So we gained 3 cents a share and lost 1 cent. Now, what's nice about PLTY is we do these things because of the share count, and you see it reflected in income. In Coney, you got to kick some serious butt to get a lot of money in the door because they got so many shares outstanding. It's like 7 million over there. We're 146 million. And in particular, when you're $7 or $8 and you're still yielding, but I don't know what Coney's going to yield. In all honesty, I mean, they've got the profit now in their synthetic. But again, I don't know. This doesn't look like $1 a month, especially when they're an $8 stock. They got to really do something. This is probably 30, 40, 50, 60 cents. We have a lot of time left, right, on Coney? Yeah, we've got 3 weeks on Coney, so I'm not in the least bit worried about that. All right, let's jump in to PLTY. Whoops, just re-clicked on. All right. So on this one, 133.17 is where we ended up. What is that? That's 0.86. We captured 90% of that, okay, with PLTY. So Palantir went up a modest dollar, and we went up less than $1, but and even PLTR may have been less than. I'm not looking at the before price, but at 0.86, it's not a lot. But when your synthetic is 115, we went from 71 million profit on our synthetic to 75 million. What's that represent based on the share count, which was flat? No shares were added. We had that initial 30% momentum in 2 or 3 days, a week ago. And since then, we've been fairly flat, which I'm okay with. But we're slowly creeping up. We were back around $62 and 128, 129. So I'm okay with where we are. Let's go over what our aspect proposition of winning the rest of this week. So as we set at 133, our synthetic has the money. Okay, we could drop a fair amount and not be hurt there. And this one's 718, so I don't see them rolling unless they want to do a payment and they want a little bit more of that money to pay out. But you're talking 14 days, basically 2 weeks from today is when they declare. And Group B, right? You're talking about Group D giving actuals today. Then over the weekend, I'll have my estimate for A. Then next week, they'll show A paid, declare and pay, and then we'll be followed by B. All right. So on these guys, let me explain to you the percent of in the money and out of the money where we're exposed. So at our 133, we're over this guy. Now, they didn't take it off the table, but they did. They did 3 or 4 trades, and I'll show you those in a second. So we are sitting behind the curve. It would cost us 6.3 million to close this position. Well, at 133, technically only $3. Well, what are we? 133 and what? Oh, 133.17. So technically $3.17 is how much above this we are. The rest over the next 3 trading days is all time premium. So I think that's why they hesitated on this one. You hate to take them all back and then see this thing filter down to 130 and go, "Oh my gosh." Right? You took 6 million loss right there. It's not actually a 6 million, it's a 3.7 because we collected 2.6. But look, we were collecting pieces at 1.8, 2.17, 198, 208. So with the other stuff, 139 is farther out of the money, right? We're at 4%, 2%, 1%, and 2%. Unfortunately, I don't have these in perfect order of highs. So we have varying degrees of success where we've earned a fair amount of the money, and we've only earned a little bit of the money, we've only earned a little bit of the money, and we've only earned a little bit of the money. But these guys, if we stay 133, over the next 2 days, they'll be able to buy these back at the end of Thursday or Friday, assuming we stay below 135, 136, and 137. I think we'll stay below 139. But you never know when these things are going to run. Personally, just some of my subscriptions and some of the things I follow, we're close to another little top here in the market. I think it will toward the end of next week, maybe out like 611, around that time frame. I think we top and go down. I've been loading up on VIX, UVIX actually, which is a 2x of the VIX. So UVIX, I've been buying in the 28, 29 before that, because if we turn down in the indexes, that volatility shoots up, and those things, I'm hoping they run up to $40 or $50. And I move quickly when that happens. I have an order in, I use, after hours, pre-market, and I get out of those things because they're not long-term holds. You get volatility and it can settle right back down. It's settled down now because the market's flat to up. but I have a feeling we get that spike. And there's so many geopolitical, from tariffs to war to hotspots. There's just so much going on that I can't resist getting into that UVIX position. I know this is not part of Coney and PLTY, but I think you guys that appreciate me like for me to tell you some of the things that I'm doing. So I'm telling you that. I told it in another video. I'm reminding people. Now, you can play the options on these, or you can just buy them since they're not that expensive, $29, $28 positions, and I plan on just swing trading them. I think that I could hold them as long as 2 weeks. I think this after 611 we get some of the market sell off, and then I think the volatility really spikes in those, and I could be selling even into the week of 620. But if I get a 30 or 40% profit, I'll take some off the table, maybe half or more. All right, guys, just making note of some of the things I do besides investing in income and metals. You know about metals, and if you don't own any, shame on you. All right. So that's what we got here. I categorized the trades down here. They resulted in a net 2.4 where we actually did something loss. Now, these were insurance trades that we capitalized and made money. When it ran up 133, they did it earlier in the day when PLTR was higher, probably up. I don't know what it's, I'm not looking at a chart. But if I was looking at a chart, I would tell you the time of the day they did it, and they cashed out for 206. Well, they only paid 71 for this lot of 2483. They only paid 39 cents for this lot of 5,000. So they sold 7,483 138 calls they had bought insurance when we were down at 128 for a profit and closed it out. And then they went and sold a cheaper one, I think a 141 or 143, still on the week of 6/6. So they may eat that money, that 78 cents they spent. If it doesn't go that high, that insurance just expires worthless and they're out the 78 cents. But look at this. This is a dollar, 60 profit. This is a dollar 30 5 profit, right? So nice. But they also got clobbered on these 129s. They had to pay 704 and they only collected 220. They had to pay 704 and they only collected 209. What they do is they sell a certain amount, and then in accounting, you literally have to go over here and say, okay, well, we sold 5,000 over here, we sold 4,000 over here, but you got to get to, you got to get to this 7,483. And sometimes you're lucky that's how many they bought in one swoop. So you kind of got to break it up, and yet they had to pay, they had to buy them back for 704, but I had to account for the pieces and what those costs were. And so when I add all this together, these four things, there's where you get the 2.4. So we took a little hit on that, which I show here. And on our synthetic, technically, we went from 71 to 75. So we made more than we lost. How about that? We made 52 cents and we lost 32 cents. These were actually trades, right? So I think that about covers it, guys. I didn't update the chart, but I can go over with you because we're right in that range, right? We're still in this 133, and this is a cup, and this handle is sitting here. I mean, indications are it could easily, if it runs through 135, this thing go 140, 140. Because remember what this measures to. This measures to $50 above 125, so somewhere between 175 and 180, because this isn't a perfect 125 up here, but it's close. And I'm just using the base here, not this side, this longer interday dip. So that's targeting 175 to 180. And so there's room to run. I hope it doesn't all happen at once, guys. And but maybe we run a little bit, and maybe when the market pulls back after the 11th, which is what my gut is, who knows what causes that, then we then pull back more. So volatility can be very good in these YIELDMAX funds if they execute. And so far, other than one single mistake I think they made, not taking something off the table, I'm much more impressed with the YIELDMAX fund managers operating these spreads. Okay, guys, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'll be back for the actuals, which is easy to do on the Group D, Misty and Company. Have a great day ahead. It's getting into my evening already over here on Wednesday. I'll watch the market open and then I'll close out. Have a good one. This is not financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. All right, guys, bye for now.